Our top story this morning: in response to drone attacks against U.S. personnel and facilities in Iraq, America has carried out airstrikes in Iran-backed militia in Iraq and Syria, which has killed at least 5 Iran-backed Iraqi militia fighters, while several others have been wounded in an attack by U.S. warplanes. Now, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby has tweeted the Pentagon statement. The strikes came at the direction of U.S. President Joe Biden, and these are now the second retaliatory strikes against Iran-backed militia since Biden took office. Operational and weapons storage facilities were on target at 2 locations in Syria and 1 location in Iraq. Pentagon says that the target facilities were utilized by Iran-backed militias, including Kataib Hezbollah and Saeed al-Shuhada, and engaged in unmanned aerial vehicle attacks or drone attacks here against U.S. personnel and facilities in Iraq. Now, the Pentagon has called the strikes necessary to address the threat and appropriately limited in scope. U.S. has reiterated that America's presence in Iraq is under the government's invitation, and it is solely for the purpose of assisting the Iraqi security forces in their efforts to defeat ISIS. And Iraqi installations housing U.S. personnel have come under repeated attack in the recent months. U.S. has consistently blamed Iran-linked Iraqi factions for rocket and other attacks since the start of the year. There have been more than 40 such attacks against U.S. interests in Iraq, where 2,500 American troops are deployed as part of an international coalition to fight the jihadist Islamic State group. Now, Biden has ordered limited strikes against a target in Syria in February in response to rocket attacks in Iraq. And for more on this, we're now being joined by WION correspondent Jagriti Dave from Washington, D.C. Jagriti, thank you for joining us. Now, these are the second retaliatory strikes against Iran-backed militia since Biden took office. Now, operational and weapons storage facilities were on target at 2 locations in Syria, 1 in Iraq. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, as you say, it's the second such attack, airstrike that the US has conducted since Joe Biden took office. Now, the purpose of these attacks, the US is saying, is as a deterrent, but many observers from the attack in February said that they weren't sure whether this was actually sufficient to stop further attacks against US personnel. So that is there has been a question mark on US action. Now, these particular strikes have been conducted in the Iraq-Syria border on facilities that have been used, as the Pentagon says, by Iranian-backed militias that the US has blamed for conducting drone strikes, drone attacks on US personnel. Increasingly, the US has believed that it is Iran-backed militias that is conducting attacks on US forces in the region. So I think this is just yet another example of the continued tensions between the United States and Iran, not just in the region. Also, we know that those talks to try to revive the nuclear deal, that's another front on which those tensions between the two nations exist.
Right, Jagriti. And also the Pentagon has called these strikes appropriately limited in scope. What does that mean going forward?
Well, I think the United States believes that these strikes are not intended to escalate a situation, that they are retaliatory and that they are defensive. So this is the language that the US is couching these against. I think the US is expecting that at some point that Iran, once they see these attacks, that the Iran-backed militias in the region will not want to escalate or conduct further attacks on US personnel. That is the aim. But as I say, there are observers and commentators who say that actually the US isn't going far enough to try to deter these militias. So we could see, the scenario where we have future airstrikes if those attacks against US personnel continue. Alternatively, we could see at some point these retaliatory strikes diminishing because the message of deterrence has got through.
Right, Jagriti. Also now, like you mentioned earlier, how do you see this impacting the talks between Iran and the United States now that the United States has taken such a defensive position?
Yes, I think the relations between the US and Iran are tense, and this is merely adding to those tensions. But I think some would argue that this is not going to massively change the dynamics of the nuclear talks because they are already pretty fragile and pretty precarious. There is a sense that both sides want to return to that JCPOA, which President Donald Trump withdrew the US from 3 years ago. But there is also a sense that both sides are taking a pretty hard line, that Iran won't move until the US vows to remove sanctions, but the US says that they won't remove sanctions and that they want compliance from Iran in order to return to the deal. So there are some reports that suggest that both sides are approaching some kind of agreement, but those talks that are mediated by the EU, remember the US and Iran aren't even talking directly to each other. So this is just adding yet more fragility to already difficult discussions, I think.
Right, Jagriti. Thank you so much for joining us with all those updates. We will, of course, continue to monitor this very closely.
Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone for teaching us the truth and who rule well. Peace and citations unto the Hakim that is spread around the four corners of the earth, spreading this word in sincerity and in truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. I'm the brother Quarters of Zion, coming back through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai with another lesson, with another video, and Lord willing, this video is edifying. God. So in this video, as you just saw, U.S. carriers out airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, targeted an Iran-backed militia group. So this whole thing that is happening in the Middle East right now is because Iran is one of the last countries to not have a central Rothschild bank. Let's see what's written in here. In response to drone attack against U.S. personnel and facilities in Iraq, America has carried out airstrikes against Iran-backed militia in Iraq and Syria. At least 5 Iran-backed Iraqi militia fighters have been killed and several others wounded in the attack. So they're justifying their attack on Iraq, on Iran-backed militia, for saying that they themselves have been attacked. But the real reason behind all these attacks is this. This is steamit.com, and the title is 3 countries without a Rothschild central bank. Let me see. I'm gonna put this article, but the point is, the only countries left in 2011 without a central bank owned or controlled by the Rothschild families are Cuba, North Korea, and Iran. So that's why they don't want to do business with Cuba. That's why they are bombing the shit out of Iran. That's why North Korea doesn't want to do business with America, because they don't have central banks backed by the Rothschild family. And who are the Rothschild family? These are the 13 families in the world that apparently control everything from politics to terrorism. See, so these banking families, they control everything. Politics, banking, the financial system, and also terrorism. They influence, they are the terrorists. They move countries to take their way of dealing with money. That's why Gaddafi and Fidel Castro, all these men, they have been assassinated because they didn't want to take the US dollar as their financial currency. So I'm gonna put these 2 in the description box, and I'm gonna read the 13 families that secretly control the world. Now, for those famous bloodlines who control everything, these guys are so rich and powerful, they make Bina and Gates look like peasants. Their ideologies and connections aren't known to the public, which is why we don't know much about them. Don't question yourself if you don't recognize them. That was their plan throughout. The Astor bloodline, the Bundy bloodline, the Collins bloodline, the DuPont bloodline, the Freeman bloodline, the Kennedy bloodline, the Lee bloodline, the Onassis bloodline, the Rockefeller bloodline, the Russell bloodline, the Van Doen bloodline, which is Dutch. Van Doen comes from Van Duyn. The Merovingian bloodline, and the Rothschild bloodline. Done. So all these bloodlines, they control the banking system, and they want to implement their banking system in all the countries in the world. But you have these three countries that don't want to take these banking systems. So what do? They wage war with them. They call them so-called terrorists, and then they wage war with them. And this, believe it or not, is all within the plan of the Most High. The Most High, Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, which Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father. B'Hashem is in the name, and Yahweh Shai is the person everybody ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. And he is going to come to save the Israelites, which are the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. So if you read the Bible, it speaks on World War III, which is supposed to happen. Let's go to the book of Revelations. Revelation 6, and I'm going to start at 12. Let me see. Read on down until 17. This is Revelation 6, verse 12. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal. And who's that he? That he is that lamb, the lamb that was slain, which is Yahweh Shai, the person who everybody calls Jesus. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Why? Because of the destruction. Because when a nuclear bomb hits, then you get this mushroom cloud, and the whole heaven is darkened. You see? Verse 13. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And that mighty wind is the wind that you get from the nuclear blast. When you get the mushroom cloud, then afterwards you get that shock, that mighty wind that comes from the missiles. You see? And the stars of heaven also represents these missiles. Because it says, and the stars of heaven fell onto the earth. That wasn't the stars of heaven. The prophet, John the Revelator, what he saw was, when you look at these nuclear tests, you see that they shoot a missile in the air, and what do you see? You see something like a star. You see something shimmering. So that's what the prophet saw when he described the stars of heaven fell onto the earth. Let's go to the book of Psalms 91, because you might think that when the nuclear bombs drop, that everything is going to be destroyed, the whole earth is going to be destroyed. No, man. The blast is going to all come to Babylon the Great, which is America. The Most High is going to control these missiles, let all of them drop in America, and then the earth is going to reel to and fro. You know, that's going to be the earthquake that's going to be felt throughout the world. Let's go to Psalms 91, verse 3. And it reads, Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence, which the noisome pestilence is also the missiles. When the missiles come, it's going to be as a pestilence. It's going to consume everything. But the Most High, he's going to protect the ones that fear him, the ones that serve him, the servants, the prophets. Let's go to the book of Job. Job 5, verse 19. Salakia. Remove. This is Job 5, verse 19. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles. Yea, in the 7th, which the 7th trouble is going to be these missiles, there shall no evil touch thee. Why? Because we are going to be beamed up by these so-called UFOs, which are the chariots of the Most High, and that's going to be our protection in where we are going to look at the destruction from above. Let's go to the book of Isaiah. Because all of this is evident that it's going to happen. It's all prophecy. Prophecy is playing out right in front of your face, right in front of your eyes. Isaiah 24, verse 20, and it reads, The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall, and not rise again. And it shall come to pass in that day that Yahweh shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. You see, so the Most High is going to use the nuclear missiles, the nuclear blasts to destroy these people that do wickedly, the people that destroy the earth, the people that wage war against nations because they don't want to take their banking system, which is Esau, Edom. The Most High is going to destroy most of them, but he's going to leave the elites to be taken captive, because these elites, what we just read about, the DuPonts, the Van Duyn, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, they know what is happening. They know that there's going to be a pending destruction. Maybe they're going to shoot the missiles themselves. Who knows? But they have their secret bunkers in where they think that they're going to be safe. But the Most High is going to give the men, the servants, the prophets, the ability to go after them and seek them and get them and put them in chains. So let's go back to the book of Revelations, Revelation 6, verse 14. And heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together. Let's get that. Mushroom cloud. And this is what the prophet John the Revelator saw. He saw that mushroom cloud, that the heaven was rolling open like a scroll, because that's what you do with a scroll. You roll it open. You see? This is what he saw. The heavens being rolled open. This is going back Revelation 6. Let me just show you. Scroll. Roll. And this is a scroll. This is how you open up a scroll. You roll it. You see? So going back, Revelation 6, verse 14, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. You're going to have some islands that are going to sink. If it hits America, maybe Hawaii is not going to exist anymore. Everything's going to be moved and shaken out of their place because of the heavy missiles that are going to drop. It's going to be like earthquakes all over. Verse 15. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. So everybody, when they hear this, they're going to seek cover. You're going to have that siren, you're going to have that alarm that this is not a drill, that missiles are going to drop. Everybody take cover. That's what they're going to do. They're going to hide themselves. Verse 16, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. God, this is the elites. The elites, they know that the man there, so like, yeah, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne. Him that sitteth on the throne, that's Yahushai. They know that Yahushai is going to come back. So when these missiles are going to drop, they're going to go into their bunkers, their secret places, just to stay safe from the nuclear blast and to be safe from Yahushai. But that's not going to happen. Why? Let's go to the book of Amos. Amos 9. Verse 1. It's Amos 9, verse 1. I saw the Lord standing upon the altar, and he said, smite the lintel of the door, that the post may shake, and cut them in the head, all of them, and I will slay the last of them with the sword. He that fleeth of them shall not flee away, and he that escapeth them shall not be delivered. Though they dig into hell, which hell is the grave, so they dig into the ground, they dig into the earth, then shall my hand take them. Though they climb up to the heaven, thence will I bring them down. God, because they think they're going to hide themselves in the earth. They think they're going to hide themselves in these satellites and in these spaceships that they have. But the Most High is going to send a son to gather them one by one. Verse 3. And though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from the sight in the bottom of the sea, you also have these sea bunkers, when they think that the missile is going to hit, it's going to shake the earth, but they're going to be safely in the depths of the sea. Still, the Most High is going to find them. And though they be hid from the sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite them. And though they go into captivity before their enemies, thence will I command the sword, and it shall slay them. And I will set mine eyes upon them for evil, and not for good. God, so the Most High, he's gonna take them as captives, and they are gonna be the captives of the Israelites for 1,000 years. So let's go to the book of Isaiah 2, verse 19. Isaiah 2 and 19. And they shall go into the holes of the rock and into the caves of the earth for the fear of Yahweh and for the glory of his majesty when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. God, so they are going to hide themselves in these bunkers. Reading on, verse 20. In that day a man shall cast his idols and silver and his idols of gold, which they made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats, to go into the clefts of the rock and into the tops of the ragged rocks, for fear of Yahweh, for the glory of his majesty when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. Cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, from wherein is he to be accounted of. God, so these idols, this gold, all these things, they're not going to save you. They're not going to save their lives. So they're just going to disband them. They're just going to throw away them. And they're going to try to save their own lives. You see? Going back to Revelation 6. Bear with me for a second. Let me look for a scripture. God. This is Psalms 149, verse 7. To execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishment upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with feathers of iron. So this is what we're going to do to these kings and these noblemen. We're going to put all of them, we're going to slap chains on them, and we're going to yank them. They're going to be ours to command, our slaves. Verse 9, to execute upon them the judgment written, dishonor have all his saints, praise ye Yahweh. So going back, is Revelation 6:17, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Nobody's going to be able to stand, especially not these people that we just read about, these 13 banking families that think that they have everybody as slaves, because that's what they're pushing towards. They want you all to be slaves. Again, how? Through the chip, the RFID chip. That's how you are going to show your allegiance to them. You are going to willingly let them brand you, put something in you, which is going to be a bond, a mark of servitude, you know. So they are going to be the ones that are going to become these slaves, not this plan that they have in their mind to fill their belly and to achieve their enterprise. That's not going to happen. Let me get that real quick. This is Job 5, verse 12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in his own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. You see? So he's not going to be able to perform his device, his enterprise, what he has in his mind, to enslave all the people, to depopulate the earth, you know. All these things Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is going to bring to an end. How? Through these missiles and through the coming of his son. Just like how the first world perished with water in the time of Noah, now the earth is going to perish with fire, with that lake of fire. You see? So that's the whole reason that they're bombing Iran, that they're bombing the Middle East, because of the banking system, because of the banking families. But all of that is going to be wiped clean. So with that, I hope this video was edifying, and I want to say Kal Halal Yamla, Yahweh, Basham, Yahushai, Basham Reka Kodash, Shalom.